I saw an article on H&HH about 10 producers who deserve more love. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm gonna read the list and then I'll just pose a question that came up, in my mind. Big Crit is on here. Let's see, who is this? No. KNO, did I say that right?
Yeah, No from _Linguists.
Yeah, I'm a little asleep. I'll be honest. I'm a little asleep. DJ Muggs, obviously we know who that is. Who else? I don't want to do my clicks. Is it Necro?
Yeah.
Necro?
Okay. Battle Cat, one of my all-time favorites. Juicy J, we was just talking about.
How is Juicy J underrated?
We're gonna talk about it. Mr. Porter.
Yeah, Mr. Porter's definitely underrated.
Definitely
Eric Sermon, one of me and Lone's favorites. High Tech, Rock Wilder, and I believe that's the list. Yes, they stopped it there. So
there's definitely way more people.
How do you
It's
not mention a Mad Lib on there?
I think Mad Lib has come out of that though.
Nah,
I think he's come out of that.
I don't see it.
You don't think so?
No, sir.
I think he's come out of that by now.
No, sir. How many albums has he had that he's produced that have been nominated for anything other than Freddie Gibbs' album?
Well, you can't gauge it off the nominations, though. That don't mean, you know what I'm talking about?
Not necessarily, but I'm just saying in general. So when we're talking about underrated,
yeah,
we're talking about people who haven't necessarily tapped into a big underground and mainstream following.
That was going to be that's my question. I'll throw it right back to you. Like, when we talk about underrated, like, what defines that? Like, what makes Eric Sermon underrated? To me, that's ridiculous that Eric Sermon is even thought about being underrated. But we all different. We consume music different. We listen to stuff differently, and we're older, different ages, whatever. Some of these names, I'm like, yo, Eric Sermon, word, he's underrated. Mr. Porter, I followed him, but everybody does it. So, what do y'all think? What do you think when we talk about it being underrated? You were about to go into it. Like, how do we get there? Because some of these names, I don't know if I would necessarily say they are. And I'll go to you first, Jay Diff, because I know you were about to.
I mean, it just depends on the audience.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about, if you're gauging it with, if you're putting everybody together, like I just said, if you're gauging underground and mainstream, then yeah, you're going to have people that are considered underrated.
Yep.
When you're talking about people that are actually heads in check for what's going on, a lot of times the underrated gets washed because, I mean, the people that are in the know, it's like if you know, you know. Simple as that. But I mean, I can G for people being underrated though. I don't necessarily agree that who did you say?
The ones that threw me off was Eric Sermon, High Tech, just to name a few. Juicy J was on there.
Okay, Juicy J, I wouldn't say. Juicy J is, I mean, we just talked about him pretty much, well, him and Paul being pretty much fathers of Memphis sound for the most part. So
Facts.
I wouldn't necessarily say they're underrated.
Battle Cat is
Mr. Porter,
underrated.
the only person that I could consider for 100% of fact as being underrated is Mr. Porter.
On that
and I
list.
think that's just basically because people don't know who he is other than being in D12.
Yeah.
They don't even know he really produces and stuff like that. So
I mean, No's an interesting name because, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great producer, but he hasn't done as much as like a Mr. Porter has. You
Right.
know, he's primarily known for Cunning Linguists. So it's interesting that he's on there. I think he is underrated to an extent, but
Cunning Linguist isn't even a group that everybody is familiar with. Even
Sure.
a lot of people that are considered hip hop heads don't really listen to Cunning
You
Linguist.
looking at one
Sure.
right now, and
Yeah.
I openly tell y'all I'm asleep.
yeah, but you're sleep on a lot. So
I definitely am. I definitely am.
I mean, I think there are a handful of names that could go on there, though. I mean, like, Knots is right
Knots.
next to Mr. Porter. I
Yeah.
think Ill Mind should go right up there as well.
Crisis.
DJ
Crisis
Khalil.
could.
DJ Khalil for me is one that could be added. When I see High Tech, Battle Cat to me is severely underrated. Severely underrated. Like when I saw him on the list, I'm like, all right, that makes sense. Like he's severely underrated. I think Crit being on there is cool too, just because we focus on his rap so much, but the people that truly know him know he produced the majority of the mixtapes out the gate.
But what has 𝐁 done for other artists?
See,
that's what
Google
can
that.
lead you to being
Underrated?
underrated because if you don't know Cunning Linguist, then you don't know. No.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like if you're not a fan of Big K.R.I.T., then you don't know him as a producer.
Yeah.
Like really what steps you out into being a producer is like, okay, have you, and you hate to put the onus on hits.
Yeah.
But let's not even put it on hits. Songs people know. There's a difference between hits and songs people know. We talked a little bit about that, especially in the streaming era.
Yeah.
The difference between hits and songs people know. And I really think unfortunately, that's what leads people to being underrated a lot of times. With Battle, I know Battle Cat because I know the stuff he did for, I was a fan of the work he did on Corruption.
Talk to him.
He did Weak and Freak It.
Yeah.
Like
Cali is active.
That's one of my favorite West Coast joints of all time.
Yeah.
So of course I know him, but if that's 24 years ago at this point.
That's like Eric Sermon's. Like, why is he on that list?
That's the one that jumped out to me.
And I think about when you say Eric Sermon, I was like, if you're from the era when Eric Sermon, between the stuff he did for EPMD, his solo career, what he's producing for Keith Murray and Redman, he's not underrated at all. You just don't know him because he hasn't done anything
20
recently.
years.
But I think some people,
or either things he has done recently haven't been big hits. But Eric Sermon, come on, man, this dude has worked with everybody.
I think people look at Eric Sermon, and like I said in the lead-in, like me, like Lone and I, we've been fans of Eric Sermon since I've known him, and it's like when I look at him, I'm like, I think people just look at him as, oh, that's one half of the dude that was the group EPMD, and they just leave it there, not realizing how much he was producing back then, before now. Like, he's got a consistent track record of production.
There was a time when like it was a big deal if you looked at a CD or a piece of vinyl and it said Eric Sermon remix.
Yep.
That was a big deal. He did stuff for D'Angelo. I remember he did the Put the Sets in Your Air off of Temples of Boom. He did the remix for that. Like,
and that just like music still go.
So you're talking about somebody who's worked with R&B, hip hop, underground, mainstream, who has maintained.
Not to mention he was part of one of the best duos in hip hop.
So even if you wanted to do that and just say, oh, he just did stuff for EPM, you could take everything he did with EPMD away, and his track record as far as production is still pretty immaculate.
Exactly.
So I mean, I don't know about him being, maybe he's forgotten, unfortunately, and we haven't given him his flowers like we should, but he's definitely not underrated.
Lon, what you think about Rockwilder? Kind of that you're not that familiar?
No, shouts to Rockwilder. He judged me in a beat battle once.
Oh, that's right, you did. I remember you told me about that.
I remember he was like, hey man, that one joint you played had all the girls dancing. That's what you need. I was like, all right. Thanks, man.
That's what you need.
That's what you need.
As much as he probably is a little underrated, he's another one. Maybe he is, because I don't think of him as being underrated.
Once again, no.
You know what I mean? Like, what has he done besides what he did? You know what I mean?
He has a whole song named after him on the Meth and Red album.
But besides that,
though, is where we start getting into.
He did Rockwilder didn't he do the Lady Marmalade remake? He wound up doing that.
He was a part of that.
He did.
He was a part of that.
Then he did Christina
Aguilera. He did Destiny's Child. He had a run.
But what you just said though earlier, you said hits versus just knowing the records.
But he did hits and songs that we know.
Oh, okay.
So
and again,
I mean, once again, maybe he hasn't done anything in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But like when you look at his track record, how can you say Rockwilder? Like Rockwilder, he was at the top for
Oh, he had a run.
He was at the tip. He was working with pop stars.
Wasn't he doing stuff with Federation too? I know that's an underground Cali group, but
I'm not sure on
who was the producer for Federation.
I have no idea. What I can say real quick is that the only song that I know from Rockwilder is the Rockwilder song.
I knew you was gonna say that. I ain't mad at you though. I'm not mad at you.
But I think he did a nice portion of that first Meth and Red album, the Blackout album.
I think he did too.
Be clear now, the Rockwilder got some pop checks now. He got some checks.
Yeah, he getting residuals.
He got some checks. I'm just saying, when I see him, I'm not that surprised at seeing him on here versus a Eric Sermon, you know what I'm talking about, or even I ain't gonna count Mr. Porter because I can kind of understand that based off what we talked
I
about.
almost want to know how old the person is who wrote this article.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
don't
very
know.
new old heads question. Like, who
That
wrote
is.
this article?
I don't know. It says Mitch Finley, and if I'm looking at his picture,
Okay, Mitch.
hey Mitch, you look like you might be. I don't know. Mitch might be in his.
Did he get some outside
We're
counsel?
judging.
counsel
We're
for
judging
Dart-
right now.
from
Yeah, I
Dart?
don't want to judge him.
yeah.
I'm just gonna go off just guess. He might be in his mid to late 20s.
All right, Mitch.
Mitch
I
might be
mean-
in his mid late 20s.
When I think of underground, or excuse me, like underrated producers, I think of people like, again, Knots or Illmind or 14KT.
That's another one.
You know, or even Exile from his Blue and Exile and stuff he's done with that. Like
I'm with you.
people that Jake One, shoot.
Yeah.
Like, why
Jake
are we
Moore,
not
yeah,
talking
how
about?
is he not on this list?
Like
Yeah.
there are so many producers.
Jay Moore
that-
said Crisis.
Crisis,
Yeah,
yeah.
Crisis.
But even more so, like Jake One is hot. Have you seen Jake One's catalog?
Yeah.
Like,
Fire. Fire. I agree.
I mean, it can be debated whether he has free rate. I'm saying free rate. Shout out to free
Shout out to
rate.
Freeway.
Freeway.
The stimulus package. That whole
Stimulus
album.
package album is crazy. It can be debated that might be his best album.
Right.
It ain't better than Philadelphia Freeway.
Like
to
I said,
me,
it can be debated.
but we
know.
can talk about it. Yeah, but I don't think it's better than Philadelphia Freeway.
That's what we can do.
Not with that Just Blaze.
It's-
No,
I'll tell you what.
that album is fire.
There's not really a skippable track on.
Yeah, it can
on
be
Stimulus
debated.
Package.
That's what I'm
Package.
saying.
I mean, I'll talk about it,
But you don't know it, I bet.
I know it, but I don't know it like that. So maybe I need to go back and revisit it because
And that's a
Philadelphia
tough
Freeway
album.
is crazy.
It is. And the thing about Philadelphia Freeway is it's a moment in time where I can speak from our circle
Yeah,
where everything was everything as far as hip hop is concerned, especially from a Rockefeller point of view.
that's
you know
fair.
what I'm saying?
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
you gotta take that into consideration as well. But that stimulus package is something else.
Y'all, I got to go revisit it now because I remember hearing it and being like, "This is cold." But to y'all point, when y'all put it up against that makes me want to go back and revisit it. So I'm gonna go back and listen to it,
good.
man. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I remember it being good though. I do remember that. So yeah, man, I figured we try that one and talk about it because some of these names just kind of threw me off a little bit, and some of them I'm like, okay, cool, DJ Muggs. I can see that. You got
Who's your number one most underrated producer? If you could pick one person,
Oh, that's a tough question, my friend. Well, he got me with that one. All right.
I think I'm probably going to go, and this could go multiple ways. I have to go Knots. I think maybe Jake One or Knots is probably the two for me.
You know what?
But I'm gonna go Knots.
You know what? I can vouch for Nas. If you really think about it and go back and especially that Busta Rhymes catalog, I'm not mad at Nas, Long. I'm not mad at Nas. I'm not gonna argue with you on that.
That's just my personal selection.
I'm not gonna argue with you on that. I'm sure there's more that I'm missing, but I'm good with Nas. I really am because I know how consistently potent dude is. Like, if you need any reference point, just go to his Instagram. Like,
Yeah.
he make like 10,000 beats throughout the year. I swear it's a new video.
I think he
every-
made 1,200 and some beats like 2 years ago.
Come on, man!
It's just-
Like, and all of them are organized, and
yeah.
it's just nuts, man. So
I
dude's
can
output
say-
is
What do
crazy.
you guys got?
I don't necessarily know of him most underrated. I can G with that, what you both said.
Yeah.
I can go with most not talked about producer.
Okay.
With Daz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good call.
Yeah.
Because like if we're talking about somebody that was putting out hits and he pretty much on the low without Dr. Dre had Death Row on his back and nobody talks about Daz. He was very instrumental in Tupac's career as well.
I'm not mad at that. Good call. I like that. J Moore, give me one real quick, and then we'll go to
Ooh.
the.
I think I just always been a fan of Mr. Porter.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, but
me too.
also, you know, I take it back being the oldest of the old heads.
Don't say Ice-T, man.
no,
I'm gonna get some more text
no,
messages.
African
man.
Islam. No, Shout out to Africa Islam. He did hook Ice-T up. But also,
I feel you.
also, people don't talk about Buck Wild enough. They don't talk about, there was a cat named Young Lord who used to when you talk about those B-sides and those underground cuts, might be the hardest name ever. The Ayatollah. I don't know if y'all remember the Ayatollah.
Sure. That name is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so I remember those names.
Was he producing a lot of them?
Don't do that.
The B record.
I knew he was.
And also at one point, my favorite producer, and this is the end of the '90s. He just stopped producing because he got off into the religion.
Yeah,
Sean J. Period.
I can dig that.
I can dig that too. Yeah, I'm not mad at that.
If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure you join our live show every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/newoldheads. You can also catch playback of all of our shows on any podcast app and youtube.com/newoldheads network. And go to newoldheads.com/community to join our Discord.